Today, it's because I'm in a hotel room with Sage Steele and Dave Rubin, and we're out here for Charlie Kirk's memorial. And, I just thought, hey, if I'm in town and you guys are in town, why not get together, tell some stories about Charlie, and just talk about life in general. So first off, thanks, you guys.
I love it. Love that you're doing this.
I do
Good to
love
be
talking
with
to you guys too. So, and we'll go out to dinner later and we'll talk even more. But so Dave, Charlie Kirk, your recollections, your memories, your experiences with him.
I mean, the main thing with Charlie is, most people know we toured together for about 2 years. It was me, Charlie, and Candace. That is what it is, I would say, that portion of it. But we toured together when I was on the left and he was on the right. And I met him around 2017 when I was still, definitely a lefty at the time, certainly not a Trump voter or anything like that. And we met at a David Horowitz Freedom Center thing in West Palm Beach. And he came up to me and he said, Dave, I've been watching the show, we disagree about some stuff, but I'm doing this college tour. You want to join me and we'll just hash it out on stage. And that was it.
I mean, you were Young Turks back then?
I think I had just left the Young Turks. So again, I'm still on the left, so to speak, and we started doing this. We started going to these college campuses, and this was early on. It was before we even called it woke, but there was this sort of general hysteria on the college campuses, and we'd go to these events, and they'd pull fire alarms, and they'd call in bomb threats, and they'd throw stuff at us, and there were events that we did that had to be moved off campus, and all this crazy stuff. But we would just argue it out on stage, and it was civil, and we tried to make it as fun as possible and all those things. And then Charlie would always do something that I've done at every single event that I've ever done since, which I love, which is that if you disagreed with us, you'd come up to the mic first. We didn't want people to just come up and, just agree with us and say nice things. And, everything in this last 8 or 9 days, whatever it's been, that people have said about Charlie, all of the good stuff I know to be true. I never had one remotely negative experience with him. I never saw him do something off stage, treat anyone in a way that he didn't treat them, the public Charlie. He was just a good human being. And, in a time when everyone's always like, oh, reach out to the others. Well, the three of us know this, right? We all talk for a living. We're all in the politics thing. It has gotten increasingly hard to talk to people who disagree with us. And I do put more of that on the left, because people on the right are willing to do it, where people on the left, for the most part, aren't. We could probably do it on one hand, how many people we can get that will truly do this kind of thing with us. But he was doing it better than anyone else, because not only was he doing it at colleges, but he was trying to find whoever else publicly, whatever the public equivalents of us are on the left, he was still trying to reach out to those guys. And there is a hole. There's a hole in the country right now. And that's why immediately when I saw that this thing was happening today, I was like, I have to be there for that. And I'll just say one other thing, because I think I told Sage on the way, when I got on the plane today, it's like you guys, you get on a plane, a few people are going to say hi to me. I kid you not, I think half the plane offered me their condolences when they walked by me. Really, I've never had any experience like that ever, really wild. So something has really shifted in the country, but suffice to say, to answer your question, he really was a good man. He was trying to blend his faith with the direction that I think he wanted the country to go in, and he was doing it honestly and earnestly. And it's like, how much better can it be than that?
How many of his explanations rung true to you and sort of pulled you closer to the center and maybe over to the right a little bit? Because I mean, obviously you go out and he gets humanized. The first thing is they're humans. You go, this guy's a good dude. I see how he interacts with people. He's a big tipper when we go out to dinner, whatever that thing is. So that's box number one. You become a human, because the person that killed him had to stop the hate. So it wasn't a human to them. They were stopping hate. So you become a human, but also there's a brass tack sort of argument side of it, where he starts talking about the border or abortion or something, and you go, I've not really heard this side of this argument before. And if you're open-minded like you, Dave, I think a guy like you who is sensible would start drifting that direction.
It's a great question. I kind of tried to address it on Fox the other day, but you do these 5-minute hits where by the time you say hello, you have to say goodbye. What I would say is I credited Charlie that for me, in my political evolution, I was on the way because I was seeing the hysteria of the left, sort of before a lot of people saw it. But then look, I sat down with Charlie, I sat down with Ben, I sat down with Dennis Prager, the laundry list of names, Jordan Peterson, obviously, and all these people who are just decent human beings who are open and can explain themselves. And Charlie really, in some sense, Jordan probably was the best of the best at explaining sort of all of the metaphysical stuff, but Charlie in just like the most like common, decent way to explain what government is and all of those things, like I fully credit him for me. I moved a lot closer to him than he moved to me. We still definitely had some little political differences, and there's a great video right now of him explaining the difference between a liberal and a leftist, which is something that three of us talk about all the time. But he knew that the liberal was not his enemy. You know, the liberal that, okay, maybe believed in a little more government or, you know, socially was a little bit different. He knew that they weren't the enemy. The enemy to him, if that's the right term, was the leftist that was trying to shut down discussion. And then obviously look what just happened.
Yeah.
So
Sage,
I give him a lot of credit.
I'm doing the math here. So that's 2017-ish.
Yeah.
So he was about 23 years old when
Right,
he was
that's
doing
crazy.
that.
Yeah.
You know?
I didn't even realize when they said 31, when I saw it in print, I was like, that cannot be, because he came across like
so wise, and all the videos that have been running since this happened. His first interview on Fox as an 18-year-old and as a kid, and he had the two other young high school kids next to him nodding. And but Charlie commanded that room, that set, and I love that. I actually hadn't heard that story. Your kind of first introductions with him, and it reminds me. Actually, Van Jones, did you see the video Van Jones just posted about hearing from Charlie the day before he died? Yeah. And they have a ton of differences. Yeah. And it didn't sound like it had been that friendly, but what did Charlie say? I want you on my show. Like, this is who he has always been, which is what makes me mad that people are trying to say otherwise.
But by the way, just 2 or 3 days before he was shot, Van had gone on CNN and tried to attach the Charlotte killing to Charlie. Did you see that video?
I didn't see that.
Oh, yeah. So Van, Adam, did you see that?
No, I did not.
So I credit Van. I credit Van for what you just said. But remember, 2 or 3 days before, the story we were all talking about was the young woman, Irina, who got killed on the Charlotte Light Rail. And on CNN, who's that woman on the 8 o'clock show? Who's the host of that woman?
It's not Abby Phillip.
Oh, Abby Phillip. Yeah.
With where Scott Jennings is always on.
Right.
Yeah.
Abby Phillip brings up, as they're talking about this, Abby Phillip out of nowhere brings up Charlie's name. It's 2 days before he's killed, saying, Charlie Kirk loves this because, in essence, it leads to the race war that he wants. And then Van pretty much says the same thing. So I was glad to see the thing that he put up there.
He didn't have to do it. He didn't have to acknowledge that. But I do wonder, from a human level, if we can pretend to be humans over here at CNN at times, like, what does that feel like now? Because they're just, in many ways, grasping at straws. But let's point the finger and not take any ownership of what that moment was in the Charlotte Light Rail. Yeah. And let's bring in Charlie Kirk, who had nothing to do with it. I'm newer to this world, Adam, as you know, and I met Charlie on Twitter when it was still Twitter.
Really?
And he reached out and said hi and said, I see you, and to hang in there and stay strong. And of course, I knew who he was. And my kids have known who Charlie was forever and ever, and they're college age and a little beyond. And I was like, oh my gosh. And then I'm like, wait, is that what I am now? Am I one of them? And the answer was yes. I just was learning to be comfortable with it, and I wasn't canceled fully yet. Mm-hmm. And I was still at ESPN, so it was like treading water into these secret messages. Yeah. And I don't think I met him in person until the TPUSA Faith Summit in 23 in West Palm Beach, or was it 24? 23. I think it was 23. And when they invited me, I was so floored. Again, probably accepting who I was at that moment, and honored. And I had never spoken publicly at all about my faith. It was the first time. Charlie, been around him several times since then, obviously, but that's what I'm the most grateful for from a personal, selfish level, is for him to lead the way. And I said this on Fox the day it happened, but I never used to want to wear this cross publicly. Certainly as a journalist on ESPN, I thought that was important not to. Laura Ingraham is different on Fox and sports. I never did it. But
it is sad that we've crafted an America where wearing a cross or waving an American flag will get you into the doghouse and on somebody's list on the left. The flag and the cross.
Yep.
those will get you in trouble.
Yep.
It's like a tell
And he
to them.
blended the two publicly probably more than anybody.
Yeah, now there is one thing I do want to say, which is with Charlie Kirk, and I heard Jamie Lee Curtis speaking about him on a podcast, and I feel, and a lot of people, maybe a Van Jones, I don't feel like they need to preface it with "I disagree with everything he says all the time." Now let's honor him. Yeah. You know what I mean? Like I hope if anyone's out there and they're going to eulogize Adam Carolla, don't get up there and go, "I disagree with everything that man has ever said." But he was a good dude. Well, first off, maybe not such a good dude if you disagreed with everything.
Right.
And also, Jamie Lee Curtis. And we'd run into this with like Dennis Prager and stuff. Like, I disagree. You disagree with what? Family, education, God-fearing, decency, pick up your garbage, pick up your dog's poo on the neighbor's yard, treat everyone correctly. Most of the 10 Commands, like you just disagree with everything Charlie Kirk ever said.
Well, they usually
it's
disagree
such a it's a cop-out. What they're trying to do is they're trying to cover themselves with the insane leftist, which is, don't ever think for one moment that I like this guy at all. Anyway, he shouldn't have been shot. I disagree with everything he ever said, so I want to keep my job.
Yeah.
It's such weak sauce.
Or do you just go all in like Ilhan Omar and say disgusting, vile things, not even acknowledge that? Which would we prefer?
I'll take Ilhan Omar because
because there's a certain
at least
honesty
she's out there.
There's a certain honesty to her grotesqueness about it, actually, where some of the others are just running cover. But the thing is, they're not even, when they say I don't agree with Charlie, usually they don't even know what they're not agreeing with. They don't know what they're talking about. That's the thing.
Right.
So is it possible that Jamie Lee Curtis, for example, or just like a generic Hollywood person, would disagree with Charlie on abortion? Obviously. But if they went through the laundry list that you just laid out there of like 20 things, what do you really think about the direction of the country, your fundamental beliefs? I think they'd end up probably you're going to get 15 out of 20. And then there might be, okay, so there would be a difference probably on abortion, maybe on gay marriage, which the ship has sailed, maybe on some social safety net stuff. But the way they framed it, did you see Obama talking about him the other day? And Obama's like, he didn't like the 1964 Civil Rights Act. I think it's pretty good. And he gets this huge round of applause. The implication is Charlie's racist. He was against the 64 Civil Rights Act. But you can make an absolutely cogent libertarian limited government argument as to why you wouldn't want the Civil Rights Act. Not because you wouldn't want to discriminate. That just has nothing to do with the government, and if you want to own a private place and discriminate, then you should be allowed to. There's an argument to be made there. But Obama basically said it to be like, see, he's racist, I'm not, all of you applaud for it. And that asymmetry, I think, is what we're all seeing right now.
Yeah, I would say you take 20 major planks in Charlie Kirk's platform, and Jamie Lee Curtis and probably the rest of humanity would probably, even Hollywood, would agree with 15. And then 2.5 of them he could explain to that person in such a way where they went, oh, okay, you're not a racist,
Right.
I get it. Okay, least, so we're at about 2.5 out of 20.
Yeah.
And it just bothers me that it's a cowardly thing to do. And by the way, it's wildly disrespectful. Like if somebody on the left, a major icon on the left, was assassinated, I wouldn't go on to CNN and go, I disagree with everything he said. And I just go, we had our differences. He was a good dude.
Because by the way, everybody already knows that you disagree with him.
Right.
You probably made that very clear.
Yes.
Yeah. And the racist thing in particular has upset me so much. And I'm so appreciative for so many people, Black people taking to all the social media platforms, people who didn't even know him, who are doing what? Their homework and researching and going, oh gosh, no, all he wanted was for us to not lead with race. And then they'll take a clip, because anybody can edit anything, and people have gotten quite good at that. But every single time, it's no, I want you there because you have earned it, because you have the training for it. Yes, pilots, everybody. Because we shouldn't be starting with color. And the fact that they've clung to 1 or 2 edited sound bites and said he is a racist is disgusting, beyond disgusting. And there's very few words I think that you can say that stick with someone. And that's one of them. Fortunately, Charlie he went like that because he knew the truth, and anyone who actually listened knew the truth. But that's something that's bothered me, and certainly my DMs. nonstop. Like, how could you? Have you looked in the mirror? I'm like, I actually.
So are you telling me you never experienced any racism at a Turning Point event? I thought it was a white supremacist.
Exactly.
college, right?
Exactly.
Like,
I would see it in the back.
Yeah, it's just so profoundly nonsensical, all of it. Like, he really was going out of his way to do the thing that we're all told to do, which is reach out to the other side. So you find the guy who's doing it more than anyone else, and then your reaction when he's killed is basically to be like, he's horrible.
I also think people were so threatened, obviously, in many ways. Number one, he was winning. We were winning. We won in November, and therefore, wait a minute. And number two, the reason why the AOCs and people on that side won't sit down and talk to him and debate him is because they know they can't beat him in a debate. And me, that was the thing they hated the most. So then you go with the easy way out, the cop-out way, which is you're a racist and you want women in the kitchen doing only those things. Because that's what I tell people who've asked me in the last 10 days. The brilliance of this man in every area. I mean, I always felt dumber next to him, but smarter after, you know what I mean? And whether it's the Constitution or the Bible, just get out of the way, sit back and learn and absorb it. And that's what, besides the personal human level of him that we're all going to miss, he was making us smarter and better and helping educate us in a different way, a way that no one else was.
And by the way, you know, on the trans thing particularly, since there's some level of this that involves that, I never heard Charlie once say that an adult can't live as they wish to live. Obviously, he wasn't into the trans lifestyle, let's say, or the idea that a guy was going to dress like a woman or whatever. He had his own beliefs according to that. But I never once heard him say, and we should be passing laws so that a man who's 21 years old that wants to live as a woman can't do it. He was never going to jail these people or anything else. He had his own beliefs related to these things. And then, of course, there's the child component of it when they're doing all this stuff to kids in school. And that's what's so warped about this kid that killed him is if the partner or lover or roommate, whatever it was, is trans, which is what they're saying, well, if the idea was, I'm doing this for you, in essence, well, you just ended everybody's life. You killed Charlie. That's a sidebar to them, but you just ended your own life because he's probably going to die by firing squad in Utah. And you've, in effect, ended the roommate's life because he's now attached to this forever. So that also shows you a certain level of the craziness around this. Oh, I can kill someone so that we'll be free. And in end, you actually put everybody in perpetual purgatory.
Yeah, well, you heard the news anchor, I think it was ABC, talking about, you know, the lover was trying to protect his lover.
It was touching.
It
was touching.
Okay, first off, a few things. I'm on this kick lately, but you talk about these people never wanting to cross the aisle and debate. You know, AOC is not going to debate anybody with brains. But all they ever talk about is speaking truth to power. And then they say they got all the power, but then Kamala won't go on Joe Rogan. So which is it? Is he the one who's in charge of all the young votes? And if you're the one who wants to speak truth to power and then he's the man, well, then go sit down and set him straight. But they never do it.
Yeah.
And at a certain point, you have to think of it as a fighter who's ducking a heavyweight.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like, this guy will never get in the ring with Ernie Shavers. Like, well, we're having a contract dispute. Yeah, I know. You won't fight the guy. Like, at a certain point, when Mike Tyson was in his prime, Mike Tyson fought Buster Douglas. After the fight, said the guy punched him like a fucking mule kicks, and 7 months later, they're back in the ring again because Tyson thought he was the baddest man on the planet. Yeah. He was right. He thought Buster Douglas punched like a mule kick, and he wanted to get it on again. Because that's someone who feels that way. Yeah. And you ask, you know, us or Ben Shapiro, like Charlie Kirk, where they'll go anywhere because they feel like Mike Tyson getting in the ring. Like, hey, it's just me. And Buster Douglas, sorry, oh God, I'll think of his name. It screws him. But the point is this. There's a part of them that knows that that's Ernie Shavers, and Ernie Shavers got a big right hand, and they don't want to deal with Ernie Shavers.
Look, every time I go to D.C., we send out about 20 invites to Republicans, 20 invites to Democrats to come on the show. I have you can criticize me, say whatever you want about me. I've never heard the criticism that I'm too much of a combative interviewer, right? I've heard the criticism that I'm too kind, actually. That would be the main one. Or I'm more like Larry King, right? In that I'll just like let the person talk and you can kind of come to your conclusion. We have invited every Democrat over and over and over. The only congressional Democrat who has talked to me in the last 5 years is Ro Khanna, who's come in twice. Nobody else even responds.
Really?
And that is not for lack of trying. It's not for lack of trying. I would never send anybody up. I just never would do it. I would treat them with the exact same respect. And I give credit to Ro for doing it. And then he does it, and frankly, his ideas do come across pretty thin, even though I'm trying to be as nice as possible. So you're completely right, Adam. It is the fighter that's like, yeah, I can't risk it. And AOC, she could never risk it. What she can do is go on CNN, get softball interviews, and then say horrible things about the opponents.
Donovan Razor Ruddock.
Sorry, okay.
Not
There you
Buster
go.
Douglas.
Right,
Razor.
Buster
He
Douglas
took
kicked
it to him.
He kicked the crap out of
Sorry,
Tyson.
Donovan Razor
They're
Ruddock.
going to be crushing you now.
I corrected. I self-correct.
I knew it, but I
You
didn't
knew
want
it.
to.
I know.
Want to
Donovan
bus on your own show. We
Razor,
have a
not
sports anchor
Buster.
here,
Razor and Buster.
Last time I thought about boxing, he's been doing boxing. By the way, I talked to Dr. Phil. It was coming off of the MSG rally. And he said, because remember he got a little bit of crap for speaking at that rally at the Garden. And he wanted to make clear afterwards, I don't know that he actually did, because what we did never aired. But he said, number one, I would have gone if they had invited me. I would have gone to her rally. No one invited me. And more importantly, no less than 23 times his team reached out to her team. And again, not a response. So, and the Rogan thing. So this is very consistent because they will only go to those friendly places. As far as the youth, obviously that's what Charlie helped turn. And I said this a year ago. I don't know that we win that election without Charlie Kirk. I actually don't think you do, especially when you look at those youth numbers, the number of kids who came out to vote, obviously 18 to 29, and that 20% turn, taking 20% of that demographic, that vote from left to right, that is massive. I don't think the left expected that, certainly, but they never had to think about this stuff because they were always the ones that were so good with the youth. Starting really, I guess, when I fully started paying attention was Obama in 2008, because what did he do? It was Hope and Change, and it was the pretty logo, and he was good looking, and his wife, and they got deep dive into Facebook. That was the bigger thing, right? And probably not Snap, what was it, MySpace? And
no, they
whatever.
fully credited Facebook. That was their
Was
thing.
it Facebook? Facebook, I didn't know if it was the other platforms as well. And so they did that, and they crushed that demo for all these years until Charlie Kirk came along. So I think they were still shell-shocked. And who did they have on their side that was that person that could reach to that level, who was that brilliant and that fierce, where he was not taking no for an answer?
But I think we should also acknowledge that it is partly because the answers of the right, without getting too political, are closer to the truth than the answers of the left. It's not just like happenstance that Charlie or all the names that are in this culture war are willing to talk to the other side and the other guys don't talk to us. It's not because we're all just so much better or anything else. It's that actually it's easier for us to explain our ideas. And again, I credit Charlie with a lot of the evolution of my ideas, where if you were someone on the left, if you were just like the sort of standard woke progressive YouTuber lefty. I don't even know who that is. I actually don't even know who that is. But if you went to college to argue with the conservatives, a good conservative is going to beat you. These kids did not beat Charlie. He didn't go out of his way to beat them in like the capitals on YouTube.
Well, but I think there's a couple things at work. One is I don't think they know our arguments for things. No. I think we know their arguments for things, and basically, how well would you do as a football team if you didn't study game film of the other team? And basically what they do is they don't have film session. They just go, we're going to beat that other team because they're racist. And they just show up and they haven't studied them at all. And, I think for me, I always push back against the argument where they go, well, this side only watches CNN and that side only watches Fox. I always go, but every airport I'm in has CNN playing.
Yes.
I know exactly what's going on CNN, and I know every one of their arguments. They're surprised, I think, when they hear a lot of our arguments. And our arguments, and it's basically why I'm Republican, is I just say I'm a nutritionist who's saying diet and exercise. That's all real basic stuff. And they go, yeah, but what about? What about a metabolism, or what about a thyroid condition? I go, let's just go with diet and exercise. See if that gets, yeah, but what about my fudge? I have dietetic fudge, you know? And I go, let's just do diet. Let's see what happens. Let's just do family and education. Let's see what happens. And they argue, and then they go, I know a guy who never works out, and he lives off of donut holes. He actually takes the hole and he puts it back into the donut, and then he eats the whole thing. That guy looks fit as a fiddle. How do you? And I'm like, okay, he's good.
The one.
He's good.
The
he's
one.
good.
Notice Adam tried to get us to eat donuts.
I tried to get you to eat
donuts
right over there.
So my point is I'm just diet and exercise guy, you know, and also as I was speaking this morning, and I just said, you know, here's what I feel like. I'm not trying to push an agenda. I'm just trying to stop your horrible agenda, which is not me pushing an agenda. And it's like, we live in a society where Trump gets voted in. He says, I'm going to shut down the border. And he moves a bunch of building materials up on the border in Arizona, California, to build a wall. And then Biden gets in and he sells all of it for scrap.
Yep.
And then Trump gets back in and he wants to buy the materials back after we bought them, moved them, sold them, and scrap. And I just feel like, first off, who's more into border security? Biden or Trump? You know what I mean? Like, which side? And all you guys want to do, you basically, I'm just walking through the park, you're throwing garbage on the ground, I'm following you and picking it up.
Yeah.
That's all I feel like I'm doing. I want to be left alone. I just want diet and exercise and education and family and exercise, and just let us be. Yeah. You know what I mean? Like, I'm not telling you what to do during COVID. You want to wear a mask? You want to wear 3 masks? Go ahead.
But what you're explaining is exactly why Scott Jennings is crushing it the way he is on CNN. Because if you watch the guy, there's nothing so amazing about his television presence or the way he speaks or anything. He's quite good on television, obviously. But all he's doing is basically being the same guy against crazy people, right? So they're just, everything that they do is racism, sexism, homophobia, blah, blah, blah. And then he just gets up there and explains very simple things to them in a calm, cogent way. And that, I think, is in some sense what Charlie was doing. It's in some sense what we all do. And it's also, to your point, it's more reflective of how Americans actually are. Most people are not endlessly hysterical. Most people don't think the earth is going to end in 12 years because of climate change, or that America is fundamentally evil, or we were founded on racism, or anything, or any of these things. But I would say they have been able to capture a certain set of people that are younger than us and break their brains through algorithms and gender stuff and all of these things. And that's the thing I'm really worried about, because you probably saw that YouGov poll this week. 25% basically of young progressives think political violence is okay.
Yes.
And if that's being polled, that means it's probably higher than that. We saw them celebrating the fact that Luigi Mangione is not going to be charged with terrorism this week. Like, that actually is deranged, because if you think that everyone around you is a Nazi, what would you do? It's pretty obvious.
Well, I keep explaining that to people, and it's very disingenuous of the left, where they go, we got to lower the temperature before someone else gets hurt. And by the way, he's a Nazi.
Yeah.
Well, look, there was something called the French Underground during World War II, and France was occupied by the Nazis, and those were exquisitely noble people who went and did what they did with fake badges and fake paperwork, and they were operating an underground, and they're the heroes of World War II. And if one of them could have got Hitler in their crosshairs and taken Hitler out in 1942 and a half, there'd be statues of that human all over Europe and the United States. So, okay, well, they believed Hitler was bad. Now, Hitler was bad, but if you just believed he was bad, that would be enough to put him in the crosshairs. So this bizarre math they're doing, which is, tyrannical dictator, but let's lower the temperature, is totally insane. You will convince a very small percentage, or even higher than we'd like to admit or even deal with, that he is that, and a percentage of those people will take action.
In July 13th, 24, when President Trump got shot, they said, you know, you had prominent people on the left coming out and saying, yes, we all need to lower the temperature. And I think it lasted for about a week.
Yeah, maybe.
Is that fair?
Yeah.
Which is longer than it did this time, shockingly. And they weren't able to execute their plan a year ago. And now look. So I see that. I see that people are almost more brash and bold with it this time. Of course, the people you'd expect, you know, those normal characters, the yohans of the world, but there's still so many people who are saying those words. Tim Walz is a great / disgusting example of it. So I see that, but I also, and I'm wondering if you all feel this too, this feels different than anything I felt as far as optimism that people are going to say, okay, even on the left. I'm not saying far, far, far woke left, but this is way too far. And for Jamie Lee Curtis to come out and many people to say, my God, what have we done? The spirituality aspect of it has been insanely beautiful to me when you're looking for, there's no silver lining, right? I hate that phrase. But I do think that Charlie would look that way, and Erica is certainly going to, and everybody at Turning Point, and most people with common sense and humanity left in their soul. What good can come from this? And I do think it is changing people. I'm looking at those socials from that younger generation, and people are freaked out and scared. I have hope. Am I crazy to feel like that spiritually people are, I mean, the increase in conversation about church and going back to the Bible and Jesus and talking. And I spoke at a church last night in Murfreesboro, Tennessee, World Outreach Church, a massive church that Charlie and Erica were both scheduled to be at on that stage. That was a packed house. You saw what was going to happen with Isabel Brown, and she was at Colorado State, where it was at Colorado State at Fort Collins, and Charlie was supposed to be there. 10,000 people showed up anyway, and there's prayer, and there's people on their knees. So I don't think we'll ever get rid of the truly hateful people. Just like people talk about racism, eradicate racism. Yes, great. That would be awesome, wouldn't it? And as long as there is humanity, there's going to be racism, there's going to be sexism, there's going to be intolerance. But I have hope this time. I think this was a bridge too far for even people over there.
You know, it's funny. I'm usually the glass half full, and I'm not totally. Yes, I think what you're saying for the people that are broadly with us, which I do think is most of the country. I think that's right. That people, you see it, you absolutely see it. I saw this wonderful article in the New York Post it was somebody saying they were a totally secular Jew, and now they're becoming more religious because of Charlie, a Christian. So there could be all sorts of good things that happen. I just think the competing forces, also with the way the internet just operates, is going to, well, you just said it, that at least with Trump the first time there was a grace period for a week. We got maybe a 24-hour grace period on this one, and barely that.
Part of me thinks that these people realize, oh shit, look what we did.
So maybe.
And so we got to make sure that we don't lose those people, but the 65,000 new requests on high school campuses across this country. That was Charlie's goal, right, is to have every single high school in this country have a Turning Point chapter. They can't keep up. They're going to have to triple and quadruple their staff to keep up with the requests. Is it, in the moment, does some of it tampen down? Maybe. But
listen, I hope you're right, and I think there's a lot of signs that you're probably right, and that has to be the hope moving forward. You have to hope that something good comes out of this, right? Like, it's the only way you can look at it. I just think we all kind of thought the woke thing was destroyed after Trump won a second time, and then we saw it kind of recalibrating a little bit, and now you're seeing what the next level of it might be. And
can I contradict myself now too, though?
I don't want to take you out of the whole thing. Now we're definitely doing good.
What's going on with her? What's wrong with her? What does she drink? From day one, a lot of us are like, okay, this isn't just some kid in Utah. And then when Megyn Kelly was it when she was on Charlie's show the other day, and when she went through what a lot of us have seen with the receipts and the kids that were online predicting this a couple of days before, saying, hey, we have some big news coming, and then it was, see, that's what we were. That's what I'm afraid of.
So now you are going. Well, what do you
It's
think?
how deep.
We both flip positions.
No, wait, let me clarify. I have all this hope for the normal people.
Yeah.
I'm saying that I don't want people to think that just because this good is coming, which I feel that it already has and will continue to, that this isn't much deeper than Tyler Robinson at Utah Valley University. Like, who else is involved? So there's this darkness to me that obviously Kash Patel and everybody is investigating, but to me, I'm not convinced it was solo.
I sort of believe the truth sort of finds its way to the surface, you know, it's that sort of beach ball you're trying to hold underwater, but, and you can, and it happens, you know, and it's a weird thing. It's sort of like Fauci and Steele dossier and 21 or 51 intelligence experts sign or Hunter Biden's laptop. Like, it's all this stuff, but it figures out a way to kind of make its way and bubble up to the top at a certain point. So I feel like in this country, we were heading towards some place where CNN was going to be under new management and they were going to try to tack toward the center, and you know, the business model being woke and going broke, and Bud Light and all the campaigns, you know, Kid Rock firing at a case of beer, which I agree with him philosophically, but you don't take it out on the beer kid. Come on now. I had to stand up
Priorities.
at that point. Yeah. So I think we're going to be on the side that ultimately wins because we have truth, you know? And I think people go, we got God on our side. But even truth may be even more powerful, because I feel like God stays out of it sometimes, but truth is just like gravity. It's just always there. And you can eat all the dietetic fudge you want and talk about your metabolism all you want, but eventually you're going to see what eating right and exercising does for the human physiology. So, and things are speeding up. It seems like stuff is happening faster now than it did. It used to take a long time, and people are kind of waking up to like the Obamas not being the greatest. I mean, you know, if you would have said to people 10 years ago, 6 years ago, the Obamas, like, oh, the darlings of by the way, of culture, not politics. It's just the most beloved whatever. But if you would have asked someone if Ellen was nice a few years ago, they would have went, she's the greatest, she dances. Or, you know, Bill Cosby, that guy's America's father. You know what I mean?
But then look at how long it takes for the truth to come out. And the damage that is done.
It took us like 23 years with Bill Cosby, but things are moving
Well, we can't afford it now. With what just happened, like, we need that truth fully exposed now, so there aren't more Charlie Kirk incidents.
Well, how about this? Maybe the best way to describe it would be that the normies will probably continue to wake up. The question is how many people in this country are not roughly the normies. So, okay, you're a little more conservative or you're a little more liberal, but you basically think America's good and you want to live a life and understand America's for everybody. That's probably 300 million people out of 350. It really is.
Right, sure.
But that means if you have 50 million people and it's all that are like, let's say, a little out of whack, and then it's like 10% of them are really nuts. That's 5 million people. And then you take 10% of that, and then they're like genuine psychopaths. You're at 500,000 or whatever it is. Like, that's the problem. A small amount of people can create an unbelievable amount of chaos. So whether the roommate knew about it or not, or whether someone on the Discord knew about it or not, or whether this kid just did it solo, look at what he has done. Now, we're all agreeing there is a, as you said, silver lining, although that's kind of not the right phrase here. There is some kind of awakening, which is good. But in a world of the internet and everything else, where one person can basically upend everything on any given moment, you know, it feels like if something horrible happened in 3 days from now, whatever that is, I don't even want to think about it, but like something comparable. What happens to America then? Yes. So there was lawfare and Trump, and you know, every time he got dragged into a courtroom, he came out a little stronger. So, and so there is a kind of martyr thing going on. I think Charlie sort of turned that, joined martyrdom as well, in the sense that I think you get more decent people coming out. I mean, my daughter's 19. 5 years ago, she was
standing around at Black Lives Matter rallies with a cardboard sign in La Cañada, California, where we don't have black people. But I mean, no offense, but that's not a big black population in La Cañada. So it's pretty, it was a bunch of white people holding up signs for other white people.
And telling me how upset I should be.
Right. And honking. They would honk. They enjoyed it. But 4 years later, Charlie Kirk gets shot, and she's the first person to call me. Yeah. Like, did you hear about Charlie Kirk? And she never even talked about Charlie Kirk. And she's not even right wing. She basically stopped listening to rap music, started listening to country music, and got her head on straight. But she's not politically active. She's not really anything, but yet she knew about it, and it impacted her. And like I said, we never discussed Charlie Kirk or even politics. So, I think there is a sort of thing, much like Trump with the black community, where this group that they thought they owned for so long, you own every black and Hispanic vote, you own every vote under people under 28, you own every one of those votes. Like it's turning. Like people are starting to drift over to the other side. And the other side isn't some sort of now we're going to do it my way. It's now we're just going to do common sense. Common sense. That's all. And I'm not going to run your life, and you don't get to run my life, and we'll live and let live and pay taxes.
But that's why what Charlie did was so exquisite. He was threading a needle that is so hard to do. He had his own personal religious beliefs. So in Charlie's most personal way, was he for same-sex marriage? Obviously not. Did that preclude Charlie from being friends with me? No. Was he actively trying to legislate my life away? No. And he would talk about how on stage, there's a great video that's going around where this guy who struck me as more just like I don't like the word homophobic, but radically anti-gay person was like, Charlie, why are you bringing these gays to Turning Point and blah, blah, blah. And he explains, I have a religious set of beliefs, and then I understand the laws that we are governed by in the United States of America with individual rights and all of those things. And he says, I don't want America to be a theocracy. Like, he really tried to synthesize two worldviews that in some sense could be oppositional and put it in a package that is the most American thing ever. So, like, that, in some sense, is like the best of us. And so when you see AOC or you see Yohan saying these horrible things about him, about the Civil Rights Act or about gay marriage, it's like, man, it's so thin what you guys are doing, but I get why they do it. It works. It works. And that's our job, is to keep deprogramming people from what's working.
Yeah, I agree. And, I think I always... well, obviously, I don't know that they think of us as people. When I did a long soliloquy on my podcast maybe 10 years ago about I want parents to feed their children. I don't want the state to feed your kids. I don't want them at age 6 being handed over, or even used to, the state taking care of them. And what could be more important or symbolic than the feeding? I want the mom to make breakfast and lunch and put a little note in there, whatever. And then the Young Turks got hold of it and just said, Adam doesn't want your kids to eat. You know what I mean? And
I'm pretty sure I wasn't on that episode. Even
I didn't see it. But my whole thing is, do you really think that's who I am? I don't want kids to eat?
No, but Adam,
insane.
Having worked at a place like that, without making about them, you really have to understand that this is what they've done that we have to give them credit for. They were able to make cartoon characters out of all of us so unbelievably effectively. They really did. I didn't see their response to your video on that, but I just have no doubt they saw that, and then in their mind you're cold. Adam is cold. He cares about money. Yeah. He doesn't care about family. He doesn't care about people. Even though ultimately what you're saying is, yes, parents should care, which of course is the basic building block, but that's what they do about everything. Did you see last Friday I was on Piers Morgan, which I've sort of sworn off doing, but they asked me to go on for Charlie, and I was willing. And then I realized that my former boss, Cenk, was on. And I knew exactly what was going to happen. He was going to come on a day after Charlie was killed and say, I want peace. And I was like, okay, peace is nice, but if you are one of the people that have ginned up everything to create the conditions for this, then you at least have to have a mea culpa. So I said to him, hey, well, if that's the case, do you apologize for these 10 video titles you did about Charlie? And he went bananas, screaming and cursing. Oh, he went completely insane. And then I did another 10 about calling Trump Hitler and a Nazi. And then he claimed I was trying to get him killed by just reading his titles back to him.
The words that he used.
All I did was literally read his titles back to him. And he said, I'm a monster and I'm trying to get him killed. But that gets to, they're losing control of the thing, right? Because if you can't explain your ideas, and now finally enough of us have woken up to it, and now Charlie's death, unfortunately, has put it on steroids. The question is, what do they become now, right? The hysterical people that either genuinely thought they were fighting Nazis or the grifters who convinced people they were fighting Nazis, where do they go and what do they do? And unfortunately, and again, I'm usually the glass full guy, but I think it only leads them to violence and more destruction, actually. It's very rare that they have that moment, that like come to Jesus or mea culpa moment.
Well, you had that moment, and you had that moment, and you both had that moment as adults. And, you know, you can talk to people about what bands they liked when they were 17 or what hairstyles they were into, but it doesn't really count. When you're an adult, you know, that's when you make the adult decisions. And I always laugh at the adult politicians, whether it's Joe Biden or Kamala Harris, where they've rethought their position on gay marriage. And I always go way back at the tender age of 61, Joe Biden, when you're just a lad, fresh out.
No, well, he claimed that when he was with his dad, remember in like 1954.
They said those fellas were hugging. That's my favorite Joe Biden. Any story where they sat down at that table and his dad called him Joey.
And he grew up in the Christian church and in the Jewish temple and in the Jamaican barbecue shop.
No, what I'm talking about, it's like Kamala Harris is against fracking, but, you know, at age 54 and a half, she changed her mind. You know what I mean? So I don't believe any of their crap. But, you know, when you change your mind you guys were adults. I mean, you were not, you know, 26. You were right along adult. And I always bring up you, Dave, because I always bring up that you said, I believe, that what got you kind of out of it is how could everyone who disagrees with you be racist?
Be so wrong. That's what it came down to, was more than that. How could everybody be so wrong about everything? They were always everyone was racist and bigoted and homophobic, but they were so right and everyone was so wrong. And at some point, it was just like, this can't be it. It cannot be so dim-witted as that. And then suddenly, the reason that I became whatever it is I am now publicly is because then I just had those conversations on air. Then I was like, well, who can I talk to? And then it was Dennis Prager, and then it was Shapiro and Peterson and Bryan, you and all these other people. And I think it's similar for you, because when the COVID thing happened and you started fighting back, suddenly you got welcomed into a world of people that you would have, I remember when we sat down for the first time and you were still trying to figure it out. So that's what happens. What do they say? Like, a conservative is just a liberal mugged by reality. And that basically is what happens. And then you suddenly are like, boy, these people are pretty nice. And, you know, they pick up the tab at dinner sometimes, and they're sweet and lovely and kind, and they smile, and they don't only care about war. Like, it all falls apart very quickly, and that's why they run so hot, because they can't. If you were able to think about it for a minute or be introspective about it for a minute, it falls apart very quickly. So they need to keep
on
you.
That, but they've done a brilliant job of it, and we've gone hook, line, and sinker with those really basic talking points. What is that other saying? If you're young and you're a conservative or Republican, then you have no heart. And if you're older and a liberal, you have no mind. So, hey, better late than never in many cases. And I was always very conservative, but I really did think it was important to separate that from what I did for a living. Number one, because at the time it was super important to talk about sports. Like, that's your escape, is to go to get your highlights in your interviews and whatever it is, and complain because your team lost or whatever it is. That's the escape from the rest of the world. And I really thought that was essential. And it's good business practice, too.
Ask ESPN now.
Right, look at what's happened. And of course, they're under the Disney umbrella, so it all makes sense. And then it was, when the world went crazy. It's like, wait, I'm just asking a question about this shot that you're telling me that I have to get to keep my job, that we now know doesn't prevent you from getting it or transmitting it. It was just asking questions, and when you get crushed for it, when they could ask all the questions they wanted that were insane next level, that's when it was like, wait, what? And they did an incredible job on, I'm just one of millions, of making you go, okay, I'm sorry, never mind. And that's when Charlie reached out. And that was certainly, a long road after that. But you talk about them slowly but surely changing their mind, maybe. Look what Kamala's done just this week. So her book comes out. And then she is crushing people left and right, pissing people off left and right. So to your point about what happens next, do they go deeper into it? I mean, there's never been this big of a splinter on the Democratic side, has there?
But there's almost no way out. What's the way out for them?
I mean,
They're not
I don't know how deep you want to go on this right now.
Fetterman, I guess.
But think about that. So the guy who had brain damage, it's literally the movie Awakenings with De Niro and
Right.
Robin Williams. He had brain damage, and as his brain starts recovering, he's becoming more conservative. And then unfortunately, but then every now and again, it goes back the other way. But like, I tweeted out this week, I was like, listen, in honor of Charlie, I will redouble my efforts to talk to people I disagree with. Who's left? So the list, I get the same list that we all know. Everyone's like, Bill Maher, okay, but everyone's been through that already. We know what Bill is. Stephen A, I get Bill, Stephen A, Fetterman. There might have been one or two. The point is there's nobody left. Everybody that should be there to take that mantle, you know who should be there to take the mantle is Tulsi. But they kicked her ass out, and they kicked out Elon, and they kicked out Joe Rogan, and all of these people. You had Joe Rogan, you idiots. You had everybody.
Yeah,
you had everybody.
You had me too.
Right.
I was normal. I was always a Democrat.
And now you're not normal.
No, I mean, if you
Now he just wants a house
I mean,
rebuilt.
I mean,
yeah, you're gonna be a Nazi. You're gonna be a house Nazi.
honestly, if I was at a meeting, and they said, it's a neighborhood watch meeting, and I said, look, there's crime, and we're gonna have a neighborhood watch meeting. We're asking people to come down. I'd show up. I'd bring the donuts, not those donuts, better donuts. Sorry, but I didn't buy. What? I don't. Okay, I would show up. And if they were like, look, break-ins and the residential break-ins gone up 41%, and carjackings are up 21%, and we're going to do a whole alert system, and I'd be going, yeah, okay, I'll. And then if they started going, now, we think a lot of the carjackings are caused by Jews. I'd be like, oh, what?
But they blame a lot for the Jews. It's usually not carjackings. That's one the Jews have quite a by.
Well, I'm making a bizarre point for this reason. And then they go, we think a lot of the break-ins and entering the home and the possession theft, I think they may be Jews too.
Yeah.
And then the guy mugged Agnes walking down the street with her dog, that probably a Jew. Like at a certain point, I'd go.
So Candace Owens lives in your neighborhood. That's what you're telling me. I don't do it often.
Oh my goodness.
All right, one time.
I would say at some point I would leave that meeting because I would go, oh, they're nuts.
Yeah.
I thought it was this, and it turned out to be that, And I was always down with the gay marriage and helping those who lend a helping hand. And I wasn't religious. I was fine. We don't need to teach the 10 Commandments at school. I was fine with that. And then they started going nuts. Yeah. And when they started going nuts, I was the guy in the back of the neighborhood watch meeting who just went, let's go put the donuts down and go across the street because you guys are clearly going nuts. And every once in a while, somebody at the neighborhood watch meeting looks around and goes, maybe we should stop saying this because people are leaving and they think we're nuts. And then someone goes, yeah, it might be a plan. And then they go right back.
Right, so then your question really is, okay, so when do the donors basically say, okay, enough people have left, it's time to do something?
Well, I think the donors, if you just take a look at Wall Street, Madison Avenue, Wall Street, and places like that. You go, well, are they Republican? Are they Democrat? They want to do business. And if they think the blonde chick with the D cups can sell jeans, that's what they're going with, And 10 minutes earlier, if they're doing a Subaru commercial and they think the lesbian couple who adopted a sheep is going to sell more units of Foresters, then that's where they're. So they're really whores.
Quite a really interesting image.
There's a gay. Sorry.
The lesbians might have been into the.
I'm going to ask you about this. You're offended.
You're selling.
Who likes sheep?
Yeah, you're selling.
There was a VW ad that you have to see. I think it's 5 years ago. It's a mixed gay couple. It's a black guy and a white guy. They're driving a VW and they adopt a sheep. I didn't make it up.
This was on television in America?
I did not see that.
They adopted a sheep?
I am telling you, and I'm not offended because I'm not gay, but as the tip of this gay spear.
It takes a lot to
you
offend me. I
should-
have to see the video. I feel like I need some extra
I'll tell
context.
Mike, pull it up. VW commercial, mixed couple adopts a sheep. Now, I don't know that the sheep's gay.
What does that have to do with the car? Were they going to...
Oh, that's my whole point.
Yeah.
My whole point is
Yeah.
Madison Avenue and big, the big three in Detroit and everyone else. As I say all the time, Subaru makes their cars with love, but they also make attack helicopters for the Japanese military.
He
right?
found it.
So they don't care. Go. Mr.
You're gonna make me
Rubin.
watch it.
I am going to make you watch it because your mind is going to be blown.
All I ask is
Something's going to be blown.
All I ask is to be treated equally
Are
when
you
I come
sure
on these
they're
shows,
gay?
not to be subjected.
I think they're either that or they're
They're
very
friends.
progressive
They're in
roommates.
denial.
They're very progressive
All right, so they
roommates.
have a sheep. They're walking with the sheep.
Cute sheep.
They're
They
going
found the
by-
sheep when they
found-
were driving. They adopted the sheep. They don't talk about rust proofing or warranty or sticker
gay.
price or mileage. They don't talk about anything. But the whole point is this.
Good job, Mike.
Okay, they're doing commercials now where Dana White voices Dodge Ram commercials
Yeah.
where they're just doing donuts and burning vulcanized rubber and jumping Ram trucks in stadiums. Okay, so they got the word. They didn't want to be Cracker Barreled. They didn't want to be Bud Lit.
Yeah.
They didn't want to be any of this stuff. So who are they? They are people who want to make money. And if you are a political donor and you have some sad sack, empty, no ideas, whatever on the left, how many checks are going to be cut? The whole plan is I need you in office so you can do stuff for me after I cut a check. But if you're
Fewer.
never going to get into office,
Look at the firings. Look what's happening at TV networks, in school districts and hospitals. Like, for the first time, they're saying, you know what, you've crossed the line. And there's a difference between free speech and hate speech, which is a very fine line as well. But I'm shocked, pleasantly surprised to see some of these companies putting their foot down in that way, especially considering what happened just a couple of years ago with COVID, where people got fired for
all the wrong
insane
reasons.
So that's why I think there's going to be lines drawn and companies who are like, we're not going to put our money over here. We'll put it somewhere in the middle.
See,
Not necessarily right. You
I'm
don't
not,
think
from
so?
a political perspective, I'm not sure, because look what's happening in New York City right now. They are about to get, he's backed by major money from out of state, and we're going to have a full-on communist mayor of New York City. When I was there last week, I kept thinking, man, this could be the last time that I walk into the city for a long, long time.
Well, then what
'cause I'll have no
implications would that
desire.
have on everyone else in that party and beyond?
It will. I mean, you can see it. If he wins, it is going to signal to the rest of them, oh, we can keep going crazy.
Yeah.
That's where the energy is. You see, even Kathy Hochul, she's a lefty nutbag, but she endorsed him, and now he won't even endorse her because she's not even as crazy for him. So that's the problem. The normie thing that we're all on board, yes, it can keep getting people, but that rabid base, especially in blue cities, I think that's what's going to happen.
But they're all going to
The
leave.
city,
just like
the people with money that are saying that don't want to be dragged out
that
of their
have
houses
been
by their
wanting to
necks.
go
Yeah.
for the last couple of years anyway. Now
Yeah.
they're going to be out. Los Angeles is going to continue to have that massive.
They're going to come live where we live.
No,
Nobody's.
DeSantis
I hate to
is
tell you,
gonna
my
make-
friend, nobody's buying near you.
listen,
don't
the
have to tell you
canary, the canary in the coal mine or the petri dish is going to be New York, and it's already Los Angeles and Manhattan and stuff. And when your city becomes cautionary tale, and it's been run by Democrats the entire time, which turned it into a cautionary tale. I've always said, and maybe this will help this particular chapter of this conversation. Dr. Drew would always go to me and say, what's next? Because I'd been sitting next to Drew for so many years that he sort of saw me as a little bit of a soothsayer. Like he'd be like, you're always the one who's calling out stuff before it happens. So what is next? And he went to me about 8 or 10 years ago and he said, what's next? What are we going to do? We're going to get together. We're going to figure this one out. I said, safe spaces and octagons. He said, what's that mean? I go, Florida, Texas, guys who like the UFC, who want to drive trucks, who want to have their guns, who don't want to be messed with, those guys, they're just going to relocate. And then the safe spaces, that'll be San Francisco, that'll be LA, that'll be Manhattan, will be left behind by the sort of crunchy people who want big government, and they'll be overrun by homelessness, and their schools will fail.
Yeah.
And anyone who has, a couple of nickels to rub together and doesn't want to be led around by the short hairs by the government will just move. So then we'll have a nation of safe spaces, San Francisco, and octagons, Florida, and we'll just start dividing up that way. And the like-minded people will end up in those two places. Now, the problem with the safe spaces is they're not sustainable because everyone who moved to the octagon were the people who kept the lights on in the safe spaces. So at some point, they're going to have to start thinking like Gavin Newsom, which is like, well, what if we put a tax on people who left California? Well, think about what you're saying. It's like you saying, I opened a restaurant and my food was so bad, no one would ever come in and buy lasagna. And I was like, why don't we make better lasagna? I got a better idea. No. Why don't we tax the place across the street that makes good lasagna because everyone went over there? It's like at a certain point, find a mirror and while everyone else is looking for a U-Haul and do a little soul searching. But the safe spaces are not sustainable because the crunchy people don't really like to work, and they don't like the police force, and they don't like all that keeps a place safe and sane and habitable and business friendly.
Not to get us on a total tangent with that, but then you add in AI and automation with all of that, and when those people basically have no jobs to do either, and they're in these, it's pretty much Ready Player One. Like, that's where we're going to end up. Like, there's a dystopian version of this where they'll have nothing to do. The system will just provide just enough for them to survive, and that's how they'll live in those cities. And then there will be places, Florida's the front end of it, where people will just be more responsible for their lives and do things differently, and you will have some land and learn how to do a couple things and maybe know how to change a tire and grow some food. And it will just, and by the way, the founders, if they were all looking down on this watching, they'd probably be okay with that because that was the whole point of states' rights in the first place. You were going to just go to these laboratories. They were going to be wildly different. And now, just because of technology and the internet, we're just in that on steroids, basically.
I think, and this just came to me as you're saying that, with Trump now going into Memphis, Tennessee, and what he did in Washington, D.C., that even those left-wing politicians had to say, okay, you can't argue with those numbers. Like, he's trying to save these cities. Right?
And they don't seem to want to be saved, at least the political leadership.
Right. But then you talk to the man on the street and all those people, and they were like, people, black people, all different, the diversity, like, thank you, this is good. And at Tampa, then it got quieter and a lot better in DC. Yeah. Memphis is next. Chicago needs it. We know what the fight that is for sure. They've been super vocal between the governor and the mayor. Like, what a hot mess for a beautiful city that I used to absolutely love, being from the Midwest. So does that play into this at all, where he comes in and tries to save it? I don't know San Francisco needs it more than any city. That would be an all-out war, but
what do you think? To me, it's like you see the reaction to him coming in. They seem to desperately not want it, right?
Well, they're basically
7,000 people have been killed in Chicago by gun violence in 10 years. That's 700 a year, and it's basically all black people. So if you care about race,
black on black.
Right, which is why no one's allowed to talk about it. And 10 years ago on Fox, there were two people that would talk about it all the time, Hannity and O'Reilly, and of course they were called racist for it. Now at least you can talk about it. But if you cared, if the racial component of who was killed is something that you care about, I don't care, I prefer people not be killed. But if you care about it, Brandon Johnson should be begging somebody to be like, you know what, I guess I'm actually not that good at my job, but he's not. Because it's the same thing with Ilhan Omar. They never take a moment to look in the mirror and say, maybe I had something to do with it. There's no evidence of that, right? Like, can you think of one, now I'm not talking about the average person who may be involved, but like someone big on the left, maybe Bobby Kennedy, maybe, like that came around and was like, man, you guys are completely bananas. It just, they don't do it. They don't do it. They double down.
Yeah, the ego.
Yeah, it is. It's really weird, sad. It's also not evolved, And Trump is just baiting all these people because everything he does, they just fight. And then, of course, most of it, like let's just say the border. He'd like a closed border, so would most Americans. And then they're in some sort of weird position, which is they're in charge of the border and the border's wide open, and then he shows up and closes the border, and then they have to argue with him, except for we all like the result of what it is. It's sort of like in an 80s movie when a rich old guy would trip and fall down and his assistant would go, let me help you up. And he'd go, get your hands off me. I can take care of myself. You know, it's like now they're in these horrible positions because, and by the way, two things can be true at the same time. Trump, this can all be part of a huge stunt, and he can be saving a lot of black lives in Memphis. Right?
Yeah.
Or wherever the hell
But you're right
he's
about
going.
It will
to.
happen.
You're right about the hysteria thing, though, because think about abortion, which is probably the biggest one that divides people that are on the left and on the right, right? It's the one that, like, because it's philosophical, it's political, it's religious, it's scientific. That's like the big one, right? So think about it. Roe v. Wade gets reversed. They were attacking the courthouse, like all hell's breaking loose. It was as big as it could have got. And subsequently, Roe v. Wade, all right, so abortion's been kicked back to the states. Have you heard one story of a young girl who hasn't been able to get an abortion that wanted one? Have you heard one?
Well, if there is one, they'll find it and they'll trot it out, and then at some point it'll turn out to be a sort of Jussie Smollett story.
Of course, but the point is you haven't even heard of one. So in the 2 years now subsequent of kicking it back to the states, which is all we did, if anything, I would guess, I don't know why there isn't more info on this, I'm going to guess abortion numbers have gone down because there's a little less access to it in certain places. But the point is they made it seem like it was the craziest thing ever, and women were going to be killed, and there are going to be all these hanger abortions in back alleys. And there hasn't been, I have not heard one story in 2 years about it.
Well, what about stories of folks waiting in line in Georgia to vote and becoming overcome with dehydration and falling over? You know what I mean? Like, I don't even know what half their stuff is. I mean, abortion's the biggest hand wringer, but they were going nuts over handing out water 200 feet from a polling station. Like, I don't even know what that meant.
I interviewed Joe Biden on SportsCenter in March, April of 2021, right after he won.
During the Jim Eagle days?
The super scripted interview that they gave me, and set amount of time, and I mean, there's so many layers of awkwardness to the story. But that was one of the questions, was the racist voter laws, and then should that therefore be the reason to take the Major League Baseball All-Star game out of Atlanta that year? And I was not given an opportunity to follow up on anything. It was, here's your questions, you have 8 minutes to do all, get them in, go. And I remember feeling like a failure in life because I wasn't allowed to follow up on that question in particular about those voter laws.
Let's just stop on that.
But they
one
believed
for a second.
it. Everybody believed that was racist.
This wasn't on our list of things to discuss. So, no. Let's just take this for a second. Let's just like break it down to show how insane they are. And I don't know if they care or not, but they make some voter laws in Atlanta about you're not allowed to approach people that are waiting in line and hand them anything. I guess you couldn't give them beads or trinkets either because you could be buying their vote, so to speak. So someone makes a rule that within 100 feet or 200 feet, I cannot recall, people can't hand you stuff, and stuff includes water. So we live in a society where everyone packs their own canteen or thermos or whatever. I'm in LA. I see Sherpas. There's white women who've hired women to carry water for them just to get through the Whole Foods. All right, just to get to the smoothie line at the Whole Foods, they have people carrying water. All right, so in this modern era of everybody with a container rolling around their car, something in their hand or whatever it is, first off, what are we even talking about? Secondly, I used to do 2-a-day football practices in the San Fernando Valley. It was 109 degrees outside. They wouldn't even give you any water, running wind sprints in full uniform. So what are we talking about here? And then you guys, they mobilize, and then Jim Eagle kicks in, and the next thing you know, sponsors, and the guy from, I don't know, American Airlines or Delta Airlines, and have to go out and make a statement about these things, and then they pull the All-Star game. For what? What was it? And by the way,
Racism.
you say to them all the time, like,
Racism.
what happened to that? And they're like, we don't care. We're done.
But
did they ever care?
No, of course not. It's a crudgel. I mean, it's the same thing with voter ID.
Right. It's exactly
Do you
the
know?
same.
You know some black people. I was at your wedding. There were black people
There were a
there.
couple.
Okay. Were any of those black people at your wedding people that didn't have IDs? Were they able to get on?
pretty sure in order to
how
get
did they
that
get on
airplane
planes
to get to
when
the
I
wedding.
lived in what's that freaking in Sherman Oaks, the mini golf thing over there, whatever that castle, whatever.
Oh, yeah,
Literally,
on
you used to have to
Sepulveda.
give an ID. Yeah. You had to have to give an ID to rent a
clubs,
golf club, to rent a mini golf club. So you're telling me, so
racist.
none of it. I had Nikki Haley on my show a couple years ago, and she was saying that when she was governor of South Carolina, that's when they were all going crazy about voter IDs. So she's like, okay, she got the legislature. They put together a couple $100,000, and they went on TV and they said, hey, if you don't have an ID, we now have a fund. We'll come to your house. We'll do all the things. 12 people.
Right.
12 people.
12 people.
Because
Well-
they have IDs. In order
But,
to
this is what I've always said. Look, if you think this is a problem, I mean, if you're a Democrat and you really go, black folk cannot find an ID. I mean, when Gavin Newsom came onto my show, he told me that half of black and half of Hispanics in California didn't have access
Yeah, I love
to checking.
that
I love what
clip,
they've done to the word
that clip.
access,
Yeah,
ladies and
yeah.
gentlemen. No access.
Yeah.
Meaning you take your hat, put it in your hand, and go to the B of A in Encino, and they will send you right out the back door.
Yeah.
No access. But so if you said to me any problem, you go, okay, blacks don't have access to IDs and they can't get IDs. And I'd go, okay. And then you said, I have an idea where we take vans and they have bookmobiles and bloodmobiles. They bring them out into Muhammad.
Yeah.
They take the bloodmobile into the city. They sign people up. They get the blood that way. And
take your blood.
And we go, okay, so
literally.
what's going on with that? Well, they don't have enough A positive or something. And then I, as a sound-minded person, goes, okay, so the Red Cross has a bloodmobile and it's an RV and they roll it into town and they line people up. And then I go, that's a problem solver. Good for it.
Yeah.
So if this is your problem, which is ID, then for Christ's sake, In-N-Out Burger has a mobile unit. You know what I mean? Just go get the DMV. You got motor vehicles in your title.
That is the one thing.
Get a motor vehicle. You miss In-N-Out. I'm sorry I brought it up.
It's the only thing.
Get a mobile DMV mobile, take it into the inner city, sign people up and get them. And if you were a Democrat and you said, this is what I want to do, I would go, well, at least you're being consistent. You constantly, whether it's Gavin Newsom or whoever, just explaining that these people don't have access to whatever without offering any kind of solution means, A, you're horrible at governing, but B, I don't believe you. I don't think you think this is
I think
a problem.
we would all probably
They don't.
agree, like, at the end of the day, they want their base to be dumb and dependent. It's
And
not
fearful.
and fearful
Yeah.
and fearful and angry.
Agitated.
Right, that's actually
Yes.
pretty good. So dumb, dependent, fearful, and angry.
Yeah.
You could probably come up with some word.
And
right?
agitated,
Right.
too.
And
Like,
agitated.
just
All right, now
sort
I got
of-
it. Right, now we got
Sort
it.
of always...
We needed a vowel in there. Like, there's
Right.
a word that can come up with those things.
Yeah.
Because it's like, that really is it. Otherwise, because... Do you guys see V for Vendetta? It's a great movie. And at the end, you got to see it. But basically, when all hell's breaking loose at the end and the authoritarian leader, he's realizing that he's losing control. And he's like, we have to show them how much they need us.
Yeah.
Because otherwise, what is the point of the Democrat Party really? Like, if you knew how to do basic things, and if you had a family and you owned some property and you could take care of yourself, what is the point of that party anymore? It doesn't make sense unless you keep a bunch of people completely dependent on that machine. It's not much more complex than that.
But that's the full circle part of this conversation, as they have
Yes.
felt it
Yes,
slipping
exactly, really.
away, and desperation, and July 13th, 2024, and now September 10th, 2025, because they felt it going. And I firmly believe this is not going to go their way. This is actually going to backfire tremendously. Yes, that's the
I'm
glass
going. All right,
half full
I'm going to
optimist
say.
in me.
All right, I'm going on your crazy
This is a
train.
bridge too
Okay.
far.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, let's go out on the glass half full, shall we? Sage, let me give you a plug, by the way, the Sage Steele Show.
Thank you. I'll take it.
Great podcast. Dave, of course, the Rubin Report, another great podcast. Always great doing a little cross-pod pollination.
And we never get to really do anything together. And so, again, sappy, glass half full moment, like, there's people coming together. There's going to be tens of thousands of people at this funeral tomorrow. So much joy and happiness and prayer and celebration for this man. So that's, this is one of many good moments to come, I think. And tomorrow's going to be tough, but it's going to be beautiful at the same time. You know?
Agreed. Yeah. I will see you both at dinner tonight. Dave, I'm paying, but you are not eating a whole potato.
I can't get a whole potato.
You split a potato. Split a potato with your partner.
You were there. You know what happened?
Wait, that's right.
I sit the guy next
to. This is in LA.
Sit the guy next to a billionaire.
That's
and he splits a potato with nothing on it.
Do you know
and that's why I'm. Oh no, wait! I'm not.
You're
a
not the billionaire.
Damn it! I thought that had an ending.
The other guy's
you know that
the billionaire.
I shared my entree with Dr. Drew. We split an entree.
What is with you people?
We are considerate. Unlike the left, we are considerate.
I'm saying tonight.